Oh yeah, there we go. I can hear myself way back there. Hey everybody, I'm going to talk about OpenStack, which got an awesome intro there from Van. A OpenStack, a Python success story. I'm Termy, aka Andy Smith. You may remember me from such things as Beards of Python. I took photos for that in Chicago in 2009, and it was totally fun. I got to pretend I was a photographer for a couple days, and it was great. I'm a developer. I've worked at a few reasonably interesting startups, Flock and Jaiku. I've also worked at a few reasonably interesting large companies, Google, NASA, and Rackspace. And I work on some interesting projects, one of which is OpenStack. Usually it's all in Python, usually it's all open source. So that's been my backup, my time for quite some time. I'm reading off of a Kindle here because I like wrote down all my notes in Vim. Terrifying experience. I turned on the Wi-Fi to transfer my stuff over. It decided it was going to do a system update right before I started talking. Anyway, extremely terrifying. There's actually a lot of you out there. It's also just terrifying to be up here. This is pretty much the biggest audience I've ever spoken in front of. I am actually very proud and excited because you're actually the community I most care about in the world, because I've been like such a sort of Python guy for forever. I just want to say I like list comprehensions too. So can I get a fuck yeah? When they mentioned OpenStack was going to be invited to talk, I basically like rushed to the front of the line in the office and raised my hand. It's basically been like a childhood dream. So, a success story. This talk is written in the program as I believe, an open success for the cloud. But one can imagine how tired I might get of using one of those words in my line of work. So since using these nephologous times. There we go. Thanks. Since using the word further would bring precipitation to my eyes, I've declared open season on water vapor and will attempt to keep the talk out of the troposphere. Extended puns? Awesome. Thank you. Anyway, I'm going to give a little bit of an explanation about what OpenStack is all about, why I consider the project successful, and then some of the stories around how it all came to be. As a quick disclaimer, my views expressed in this may not necessarily reflect those of my company or the project as a whole, but I'll certainly do my best to convince them. And people who worked with me know that that is true. I'm a little bit opinionated. So it's really a tale of two projects. The main ones are Swift and Nova. Swift is a object storage system. All of this is all in Python. It's all open source. It's pretty cool. So basically, Swift is an object storage system. It's good for safely storing bunches of objects, often files. It's quick, easy, and awesome. Nova is the compute side, so it's good for provisioning virtual machines and all this stuff that goes along with that, networking and block storage attachment, things like that. It's also awesome, and it's getting quicker and easier by the day. Those are all licensed under, I think, Apache, so whatever, everybody can use it. They have tests and things like that. You should check out the code. Things run processes on host nodes, and then we bend those nodes to our nephologous will. Anyway, sorry. There are also a few smaller ones that are joining the pack. We've got Glance, which is an image storage and registry service. It actually backends the storage on Swift, but it's mostly for registering the images that you're going to boot your VMs from. We have Burrow, which is currently under development. It's actually in Erlang, but it's a distributed messaging system, and we have a guy on the team who is experienced in that sort of thing, so I guess he's writing like the best new one ever. And then Dashboard. It doesn't have a nickname, so I just called it Dash. And it's a Django web UI that's an interface, like an admin instances to manage your running stuff, your VMs, all that. I'm mostly going to talk about Nova, by the way, because that's what I have the most experience with. I was working on the Nova project. If you want to hear, I'm sure the story of Swift is equally riveting, but you'll have to hunt down Chuck or one of the other Swift guys to get it from him. So why do we consider OpenStack to be successful? Well, for one, NASA's pretty cool, right? So Part of my job is actually contracting for NASA. We have an OpenStack deployment in NASA. A decent sized one, not like the world's biggest or anything. It's called Nebula, which really helps to confuse people. So Nova was the first deployment of the Nova code base. It was originally developed for NASA. We open sourced it, and it became part of the OpenStack project when OpenStack was formed. We actually have a decent number of meetings and stuff where like projects at NASA get to show off like the cool things they're doing with Nebula and the OpenStack deployment. And so we get to see some cool projects on the way. For instance, this image that I'm showing you is from WISE, which is the Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer. They use our deployment of OpenStack at NASA. And WISE is actually really cool. They basically have like a giant camera that is orbiting the Earth, taking a picture of the entire sky. And it goes around a bunch of times, and it takes a lot of the same pictures a bunch of times, so they're overlapping. And they're actually using OpenStack at NASA to basically do some cool math stuff where they basically have, due to having multiple copies of very similar images, but having a slightly different position of the camera each time, they actually increase the resolution by doing sort of sub-pixel manipulation. It's neat stuff. They use up basically all of our idle time. We sort of have like a spot instances thing for them a little bit. And they also use it to detect asteroids, so that we'll know, which place we need to send Bruce Willis to set us up the bomb at. But yeah, they have a bunch of cool stuff. You can check it out over there. So that's one way to measure, success. Like you have cool projects doing cool things with your stuff. Another way is commercial. Rackspace has actually put a ton of, they've placed like sort of a large bet on OpenStack. They plan on moving a lot of their infrastructure to it. They're already running tons of it with Swift to store cloud files. And so these are, let me just move on here. So they're already a major contributor to the project because of Swift, especially on the storage side, and they're already using Swift in production. My company, or my former company, Anso Labs, was the main contributor to the compute side. And former company, because we just got acquired by Rackspace like about a month or so ago, and we just announced the new business unit, Rackspace Cloud Builders. That's what this page is from. And that's my coworker looking very intense, but he likes it. He's famous now. Another way you can judge success is the sort of your friends and family, the number of companies and projects that are supporting it. These are just a few of my favorite ones. There's over 50. There's tons of it. It's actually really awesome. Basically having a company whose entire business is based around, for example, networking and network management, to be able to come into our IRC channels and mailing lists and just brain dump and give us all their information and all their good ideas. We eat that stuff up like candy. It's great. It's really nice having sort of domain expertise come in and want to contribute to the project so that we don't have to learn all the networking stuff by ourselves. And then possibly the most exciting part, the way to judge success, is the community. We actually have like a very active community. So this is from a couple days ago. I think the number of commits has gone up by like 60 or something already. So 173 active branches, 2,017 commits in the last month, according to Launchpad. And that's quite a lot, I think, actually. I think for me, that's probably the most important metric, the fact that other people are actually using our project and committing and working on it. And there's, as you can also see on there, it's mentioned that there's 10 teams. There's a lot of different people who are working on this. It's actually like by far the fastest growing project I've ever been involved in. I remember when we first sort of launched OpenStack, the IRC channel immediately had like 160 people in it or something. It was extremely scary going from like 6 people at NASA to suddenly having 160 people who care about what's happening. It's been pretty hard to scale, but we're learning. Scaling websites is easy. Scaling community is hard. I think the guys in Brazil actually probably have a lot of stuff we should pay attention to. Enrique, what he was talking about in the lightning talks. Oh, and it was also totally awesome at this conference to come in and have somebody who was completely unrelated to the team giving a talk about OpenStack that we all got to go to, and he basically only had positive things to say, and that's like a really awesome feeling. So pretty happy with that. This is just an extra slide. So onto the stories part. Like part of the idea of this talk was supposed to say why we chose Python for stuff, and it's sort of a weird question because I love Python so much already. It was sort of like why there isn't a choice. I use it on everything. It's like my preferred method of solving any problem, basically. This is actually a picture of me.